Have you ever said something in anger you later regretted? Or found yourself ducking a conversation to avoid a fight? Anger can be a relationship killer, but in his thoughtful guide to effective, stress-free communication, longtime therapist Jerry Manney shows you how to turn no-win battles into productive interactions. Manney details the skills and strategies you need to get the most out of tough talks. Although the book's scope is overly broad and the structure uneven, Manney's insights and practical advice prove a valuable tool in the quest for better communication. Okay, here's the first takeaway. Set communication goals to avoid getting caught up in bitter arguments. Why do people argue? Superficially, disagreements may stem from competitiveness or defensiveness, or from an impulse to retaliate or self-validate. More deeply, arguments happen because of a desire to change others' behavior or attitudes. Individuals raise their voices to persuade or intimidate others to their way of thinking, or they adopt a defensive strategy to maintain their position and resist change. To figure out why and how you specifically argue requires some self-reflection. Using a journal to identify your pattern of behavior, what triggers you and how you react when triggered, can start you on the path to better communication and improved relations. First, think about significant disagreements you've had and analyze what made you mad and how you responded. Did you feel criticized and judged? Did you retaliate with unkind words? Were you trying to win for the sake of winning? What effect did these arguments have on those relationships? How did they make you feel afterward? After you've examined specific disagreements, imagine how you would like future interactions to go and set goals for improvement. Time for the second takeaway. Use timeouts to sidestep conversational meltdowns. When a conversation is headed toward a meltdown, taking a timeout can prevent an escalation of anger. Instead of pushing ahead with the disagreement, stop talking and walk away until calm pervades. Heed 7 timeout best practices. First, anyone involved in a discussion can call a timeout. Second, when calling for a timeout, clarify its respectful purpose. Third, specify a time for resuming the discussion. Fourth, accept that others may reject the timeout suggestion. Fifth, physically separate during timeouts. Sixth, agree in advance on what to call the timeout, if you prefer an alternative phrase, and how long it should last. And finally, avoid rescheduling the talk when distractions, hunger, and fatigue are likely. To maximize timeout productiveness, focus on your responses and the changes that you can make rather than on what others are doing. For healthy discussions, address only one concern at a time and allow only one person to speak at a time. If you need to vent, ask permission first, then vent with, not at, the other person. Avoid name-calling and apologize if you cross the line. All right, now let's hear takeaway number 3. Before an argument spirals, interrupt your negative thoughts and evaluate whether the conflict is worth the risk and effort. Arguments can sometimes trigger a fight, flight, or freeze reaction and a release of adrenaline. Frequent adrenaline spikes can lead to health problems and relationship breakdowns. Using mnemonics like SOS, stressed out severely, and HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired, can remind you to slow down. You can also catch yourself by mentally hitting a pause button before going into fight, flight, or freeze territory. Another strategy for keeping the discussion on track is to employ your skills and strengths. A good sense of humor, for example, can diffuse a tricky moment, as can patient listening. Practicing positive self-talk and knowing how to interrupt your negative thoughts are also valuable tools for honing interpersonal skills. Prioritize how you want to spend your conversational time and energy. Before launching into an argument, consider its importance in the grand scheme of things. Are the potential rewards worth the risk and effort? Here's the next takeaway. Focus on what you can change instead of fighting over what you can't. Becoming deadlocked in an argument is easy when one speaker is determined to win at all costs, shuts down to avoid conflict, insists on rehashing old conflicts, or dwells on perceived criticisms. To avoid discussion impasses, remember that while you can't control the actions and reactions of the other party, you can control your own approach and style. By deciding to work proactively toward your communication goal instead of fighting reactively for it, you'll foster positivity and mutual respect. And by focusing only on your behavior and the changes you can make, you'll be in a better position to steer the discussion in a constructive direction. When spontaneous disputes arise, pay attention to the following factors to prevent roadblocks. First, tiredness. Avoid arguing while tired, as it often leads to stressful feedback loops. Second, feeling stuck. When failed attempts to improve a relationship damage or resolve, refocus your attention on what you can change. Third, mixed messages. Be conscious of your voice and gestures. Ensure your words and actions are in sync. And the fourth factor is men versus women. Be sensitive to the differences in how men and women communicate and experience the world. Okay, let's move on to takeaway 5. Affect change through non-confrontational, affirmative communication techniques. Whether you're seeking deep and long-lasting changes in your relationships or looking for ways to resolve specific conflicts, using proven communication techniques can improve your chances of success. One such set of techniques are the Positive Communication Guidelines, whose basic principle states that affirmative, respectful, and non-confrontational communication is the best path toward interpersonal change. To get the most out of your discussions, try using the 7 guidelines of positive communication. First, be brief. Be succinct and clear while focusing on one concern at a time. Second, be positive. Rather than whining and accusing, try expressing your needs and concerns in a non-confrontational way. Third, be specific. Instead of issuing a sweeping statement like, "Why am I the only one who always has to keep track of everything?" Focus on a single request, such as help with paying the bills. The fourth guideline is label your emotions. To encourage mutual understanding, use words that express your feelings. Instead of saying, "This is unfair," for example, say, "I'm angry and frustrated because this seems unfair." Fifth, offer an understanding statement. Let the other person know that, although you disagree, you understand. This can help reduce his or her defensiveness. Sixth, accept partial responsibility. Acknowledging your part in a conflict can diffuse an argument before it begins and convey your willingness to work together to solve the problem. And the 7th guideline is offer to help. Instead of criticizing and jumping in to fix a problem uninvited, make a non-judgmental offer to help. Let's now hear takeaway 6. Be a respectful, open, and thoughtful listener. When one side talks, the other side listens. That's how conversations are supposed to go. In heated discussions, alas, the listening side may not always hear what the talking side is trying to say. And when one side is deaf to the other, resolutions become impossible. Effective listening requires a willingness to dismiss preconceptions and commit to understanding. Making assumptions about what you're hearing based on your own feelings and experiences often leads to confusion and anger. One technique for preventing miscommunication is to politely repeat what you think the speaker has said, then confirm that your understanding is correct. No matter how you feel about the speaker, try to respect his or her feelings, point of view, suggestions, and comments, and don't be afraid to respond with constructive silence. When listening is over and negotiating begins, focus on your common ground and stress your points of agreement. Aim for a win-win resolution and, if appropriate, take time to think about your decision. If necessary, commit to future discussions. Here's another takeaway. Let go of resentments and excessive guilt. Often when tackling difficult discussions, The past can return to haunt you. If you have a difficult history with the other person, you can easily find yourself focusing on old resentments instead of on the current concern. Holding on to the past is not only painful, but it prevents productive communication. Making a point to acknowledge the positive actions of the person with whom you are arguing, or reminding him or her of shared good times, can undercut resistance and improve communication. Putting yourself in the other's shoes helps develop sensitivity, a vital social skill. Excessive guilt over past missteps can kill discussions. Rather than ignoring your guilt or rationalizing it away, apologize. Expressing sincere regret will unburden you and increase your self-respect. Now for the 8th takeaway. Plan and practice constructive ways to tackle tough topics. As with most serious undertakings, mastering the skills of effective communication requires time and patience. Sometimes, despite your best efforts, you may fall back into bad argument habits. With a little planning and practice, however, you can greatly reduce the likelihood of backsliding. To stay on track with your communication goals, prioritize self-care. Bring your best self to the discussion by taking care of such personal distractions as hunger, tiredness, and crankiness before the talk begins. Consider how best to manage your time. Organize your thoughts and set your priorities. Zero in on your main concern and break it into manageable pieces. Engage in positive self-reinforcement, that is, celebrate breakthroughs and recall past triumphs. When planning for difficult discussions, keep in mind which days or times are emotionally problematic for you and identify triggers that are likely to derail the conversation. Role-playing, recording, and writing down your thoughts prior to the discussion will help cement your approach. Okay, let's continue. Here's takeaway number 9. Keep the lines of communication open when interacting with your children. Children, especially teens, present parents with a unique set of communication challenges. Because techniques that work well with adults may be ineffective with children, you need to tap into special skills when engaging with kids. Despite outward appearances, children really do pay attention to what parents say. Using mnemonic devices like SOS and repeating catchy phrases like "first things first" are particularly effective with children. Exchanging thoughts on items they have seen on the news or events they have experienced at school presents the opportunity to create teachable moments that can foster better communication. While kids' giving attitude during discussions can be particularly annoying to parents, ignoring the eye rolls and whining keeps the talk on track. Likewise, proactive measures like gentle touches or holding are more effective at diffusing tantrums than reactive discipline. To help prevent meltdowns, set boundaries for your kids and enforce rules consistently. Praise genuine effort, even in failure, and always encourage children to talk honestly about their emotions and concerns. Time for the final takeaway. Seek help when you need it and have faith in your power to change. While the guidelines of positive communication can help resolve problems in many situations, certain conditions, including anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, and substance abuse, cause or exacerbate conflicts that require professional counseling. To find a therapist, consider asking acquaintances with similar concerns for referrals. Be prepared to advocate for yourself and seek another opinion if you feel the therapist isn't hearing you or if you disagree with his or her recommendations. If you are a victim of domestic violence, don't attempt to engage in difficult conversations with your abuser. Instead, reach out to a domestic violence agency for help. In the end, improving communication and creating better relationships depends in large part on how you view the world. Fears and misconceptions about what others are thinking and doing can drag you down and derail your progress. On the other hand, being grateful for the good things in your life, big and small, encourages hopefulness and faith in your ability to change. Focusing on your obligations and nurturing a positive philosophy will keep you moving forward during trying times. That was a summary of Why We Argue and How to Stop, a book by Jerry Manney. Let's recap the 10 takeaways. Takeaway 1, set communication goals to avoid getting caught up in bitter arguments. Takeaway 2, use timeouts to sidestep conversational meltdowns. Takeaway 3, before an argument spirals, interrupt your negative thoughts and evaluate whether the conflict is worth the risk and effort. Takeaway 4, focus on what you can change instead of fighting over what you can't. The 5th takeaway, affect change through non-confrontational, affirmative communication techniques. Takeaway 6, be a respectful, open, and thoughtful listener. Takeaway 7, let go of resentments and excessive guilt. Takeaway 8, plan and practice constructive ways to tackle tough topics. Takeaway 9, keep the lines of communication open when interacting with your children. Finally, takeaway 10, seek help when you need it and have faith in your power to change.